Dream Psychology, Chapter 15, Introversion. The withdrawal of the interest from life is termed introversion. Life is not regarded with confidence, but with suspicion. The assault on life does not occur naturally as a joyous impulse towards expression, but in place of it, a defense against life is prepared. Such people are called introverts, and they correspond to some degree to the undercompensated type discussed in the 8th chapter. The form of extroversion that characterizes these people is through a plan or a scheme. The extrovert, as we have seen, is a type that finds life acceptable and assumes it is only fitfully hostile to him. The opposite type, the introvert, finds life difficult at all stages and tends to assume that it is continually hostile. He is not backed up by social feelings. His emotions are not practical. The childhood of these types is quite distinctive. The extrovert child needs little encouragement, accepts the casual explanations of the moment, and seems to assume naturally that the world and everything in it was made for its personal enjoyment. The introvert child needs a great amount of encouragement and careful explanation, and its attitude will often suggest that it thinks a mistake was made in sending it to this particular planet. The individual whose psychology is fundamentally introvert finds that his main problems lie in discovering a means of extroversion. Interest persistently turns inward, away from the contact of the world, and finds it easiest and most natural utilization in thought. To get out into life, it has to pass through thought as through a stencil, and thus comes about that some plan is necessary to get in touch with reality. Unless this extroversion is made, the individual, in some cases of extreme introversion, gets completely out of touch with life and lives in a fantastic world of his own thoughts. That is always his tendency and danger. He prefers infinitely to read of a thing rather than experience it. He is capable of being an authority on an aspect of life that he has never witnessed or felt. The attitude of the unconscious, in such cases, is one that demands a return to the world. The introvert type is, in its most characteristic expression, reserved, outwardly cold, guarded, watchful, and difficult to understand. Unlike the extrovert who hides little, the introvert hides everything because he dreads the exposure of his emotions because they are too raw and intense. They have not been worked up into useful feelings. Emotion in itself is not practical. It requires to be molded into feelings before it can help anyone. Thus, the introvert tends to be helpless in an atmosphere of strong feelings. He may have admirable sentiments, but he forgets to act up to them. He reveals himself only to his most intimate friends, and then only in part. He is thoroughly aware of his inner life and is a keen and serious critic of himself. His tendencies lie in the direction of self-deprecation, which often counterbalances by an outer air of self-appreciation. His approach to everything is critical and suspicious. The extrovert welcomes the fresh features of existence without criticism. The introvert looks at them from a distance, dubiously weighing them up, weapon in hand. Anxiety is a constant state of mind with him. He is anxious about the future and anxious about the present. Fear is the predominant factor in his psychology, and this causes him, when in a position of responsibility, to leave nothing to chance. His plans are exhaustive and cast with an eye continually fixed on the possibility of failure. In this, his organizing powers exceed those of the extrovert, who rushes into plans confident of success and impatient of the suggestion of failure. I recall at this point the type of intellectual fantasy indulged in by an elderly introvert as an aid to sleep. He would plan the fortifications of a district with minute distinctness. The extrovert will exist happily in positions of great danger, serenely unconscious or serenely confident, seeing only the omens that herald success. The introvert sees the danger signals to the exclusion of the possibilities of success, unless he is well balanced. The picture only portrays one aspect, but that, a familiar one, of introvert psychology. There are introverts of as many grades and qualities as there are extroverts, and the extrovert who has learned his weaknesses and the introvert who has learned his weaknesses and balanced his fears may be as daring and original a leader as the high type of extrovert. Indeed, he may far surpass him, as in the case of Napoleon. But the point of importance to remember in contrasting him with the extrovert is that he knows himself, if he knows nothing else, whereas this is one of the last things that the extrovert learns. To accuse an extrovert raises a storm of protest. He is so blind to himself that he will vigorously deny motives behind the most obvious and damning actions. If the introvert be accused, he tends to be too ready to feel the truth of the accusation. This peculiar difference renders it difficult for the extrovert to understand the introvert. To the introvert, the extrovert is a source of amazement, while to the extrovert, the introvert is an object of impatient speculation and uncertainty. As I have said before, the attitude of the unconscious toward the introvert is one which urges a pushing out of interest. In the case of the extrovert, the unconscious teaches a doctrine of cutting down of activities, of withdrawal, or, in short, of introversion. To the introvert, it presents a policy of extroversion. The following dream, which was experienced by a man showing a fundamentally introvert psychology, will serve as an illustration that contrasts with the dreams given at the end of the last chapter. Quote, I was in an amphitheater. Tiers and tiers of seats rose steeply to a considerable height. I found myself in a seat high up, which was so constructed that it was a matter of some difficulty to maintain my balance. Below me, at a distance of about 100 feet, I saw an arena. It was sanded, and 2 bulls were fighting in it. I saw the dust rising and the bulls goring each other, and some figures running about. I felt great fear, the fear that I always associate with heights, and I clung to the framework of the seat in case I should fall straight down into the ring below. There was a kind of earthquake, and I fell, and I struck something on the way. I found myself lying on a plank, looking down at some women who were doing something to a tub of water. I think they were catching some fish or animal hidden there. End quote. The following are extracts from the associations the patient made upon the dream. Quote, I am afraid of heights. I remember when I was quite small, climbing up a bank and becoming paralyzed by fear. When I looked back, I saw how far I had gone. It seemed like a sheer precipice. Only a short time ago, I revisited the place and saw the bank. It was scarcely 6 feet in height, and not at all steep. I have never seen a bullfight of any description. It was not an ordinary bullfight. Bulls are strong, stupid brutes. I never cross a field that contains a bull. End quote. The estimate of the unconscious is that he is avoiding the bull aspect of life. He hangs above it in a perilous position, watching the dust of the fray below. The fish or the animal in the tub of water produced a curious association. He remarked, quote, "The women were very intent on getting the creature out. I do not know who they were. I was close above them, lying on the plank. They did not seem aware of my presence. It was like looking on at some secret rites, some Eleusinian mystery. I felt I ought not to look." End quote. The change of symbolism that occurs when he falls and comes nearer the ground might denote the relativity of the position. When he is perched high above the arena, it contains bulls at war with each other. Excuse me. A spectacle of force that he finds alarming. And when he descends, the scene changes and becomes more subtle and mysterious and more defined. The bull and the association with the Eleusinian mysteries is not a mere accident. The search of the women, who are so intent in the tub for some fish or animal that is hiding there, they want this. They want this. It is demanded by them. It symbolizes a demand that the dreamer has to meet in life, a demand made by women. The color and the aspect that life takes on, the symbol that it assumes, depends upon the individual's own attitude at that moment. The difficulty of the introvert is to attain a proper sense of ease amid the ordinary demands of life. He may, for example, find the approach to women intensely embarrassing because it involves or tends to involve a betrayal and expression of emotion, and this he fears instinctively. Were they inanimate objects or slaves to be cowed with a whip, they would represent less danger to him. But as critical, independent, observant beings to be met in the open, he feels in their presence a great barrier to emotional expression. It is his ignorance of the ordinary feeling language that embarrasses him. The feeling is, from the point of view of the unconscious, a weakness which it will try to open out. In this case, the dreamer is shown in a deep piece of symbolism, a certain mystery, and experiences embarrassment. And this suggests at once that his conscious attitude in this respect is faulty and constitutes a source of weakness in his character. There is some adaptation to be made. He should be standing in the arena. When interest accumulates within, round a problem, it oversensitizes the mind in everything connected with the problem. The proper approach to all the main facts of life is a gradual one, a gradual extroversion. In this way, a gradual process of becoming used to the thing is established, and nothing very remarkable is noticed. This type of approach is the familiar way of the normal extrovert, who, as has been said, is at home with life. The facts of existence grow insensibly upon him, so that he really does not know what they are. I mean, he could not easily write about them directly. He would portray them unconsciously with ease if he wrote a novel. They become a part of him, as unquestioned as his arms and legs. But the introvert has difficulty with each adaptation, and in part this difficulty comes of oversensitization caused by initial hesitation and questioning. It must be noted that the dreamer, in his associations connected with the perilous position above the bullring, with the incident of his childhood when he became a victim of pure panic. On revisiting this scene, he realized how immensely his imagination had exaggerated the danger. Working from this association of danger, it will be seen that the unconscious is putting the idea of exaggeration into the dream. The situation above the bull ring causes fear. This fear reminds him of the fear experienced in a certain incident of childhood. He now realizes the fear was exaggerated. Therefore, the fear he feels concerning the bull ring is exaggerated. It is due to his imagination. When he had grown up and gained experience, the precipice of his childhood became a 6-foot slope. The unconscious here suggests the same succession in experience. The problems peculiar to the introvert give rise to dreams that bear a certain stamp about them, which makes it possible to deduce the type of psychology without knowing the dreamer. The same thing may be said with extrovert dreams. Typical cases of each class form a kind of antithesis. The unconscious takes up the opposite attitudes. In the extrovert, as already mentioned, it has a tendency to curtail activity. In the introvert, it urges activity. In the above case, the symbolism suggests that the recipient of the dream was an introvert. The bull symbol, which occurs frequently in dreams and allies itself closely with introvert psychology, represents something which has found its expression under this form in many phases of human history. And I'm going to pause here. I'm about halfway through the chapter. Hope you're enjoying it. Till soon.